I showed up with enough stuff to last me for a weekend, but didn't end up going home for another 923 days. When I look back now, the trade-off, I wouldn't exchange it for anything. I'm Penn. I'm a skipper and ocean advocate. I've spent the last 12 years sailing around the world studying plastic pollution in our ocean. I really loved maths and science, but also art and drawing and kind of being creative. So architecture seemed like the perfect career, and was set up for a new job in Melbourne when I finished my architecture degree at Cambridge. I decided I wanted to get to this new job, which was 14,000 miles away from where I was in the UK, but without taking an aeroplane. And that's when I came across this project called Earth Race. It was a boat running on 100% biofuel, so fuel had come from all sorts of renewable sources. And they were about to go around the world to visit 120 cities to talk to schools and politicians all about renewable energy and the environment. I wrote to the skipper and he asked me to join them for a weekend. And I thought at first that it was my ticket to Australia to get to this new job as an architect. But it ended up triggering an entirely new career I was never expecting to have. We were heading across the Pacific on Earth Race when we stopped the boat in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. I found a toothbrush was floating by. It looked like it'd been in the ocean for a while. And then I saw a bottle top and more plastic all around me, and then hundreds of tiny fragments of plastic in between. We were 800 miles from nearest land, and yet there was this waste. That was the moment for me when I started thinking, this doesn't make any sense. There's no explanation for what's going on out here. And so that's what I wanted to start and find out.
She reacted to what happened on that voyage, and there was this sort of epiphany.
I really started to learn more about how the plastic was really affecting us, and the fact that it was breaking down into these tiny fragments, and that the fish that we were then catching were actually mistaking this plastic for food. If that plastic was getting into the fish, into the food chain, the same food chain that we are at the top of, then what might that mean for us and our own health? And this, for me, opened up a whole new series of questions. And that's when X-Expedition was born. X-Expedition is a series of all-women sailing voyages looking at plastic and toxic pollution. We set off in October 2019 to sail 38,000 nautical miles around the planet. So we've got 300 women from 50 nationalities joining us for this circumnavigation. The issue that we're tackling is marine plastic pollution. 8 million tonnes a year finds its way down streams, drains, rivers, and ultimately everything runs downhill to the ocean.
Everybody ready? Yep. 1, 1, 2, 3.
On each voyage, we might have a scientist, a filmmaker, a journalist, an artist, a teacher, a policymaker.
It's the women on board that really, that camaraderie, that motivation to all want to do something to make a difference is really motivating.
I think when you see the problem for yourself firsthand, when you're in 3,000 miles from land and seeing all these tiny particles of plastic coming from the ocean, you can't help but be affected by that.
What we realise with tackling this plastics issue is that there's not one thing that we can do to solve the problem. The good news is there are hundreds of solutions, and they come from all different sectors of society. And therefore we need people from every angle working together to tackle this plastics issue. So my job that I have now, it's not a very typical job. Basically, I find one day I'm a skipper of a boat, the next day I'm a scientist, the next day I'm a communicator or a teacher, and there's really so many different things to it, and that's also what I love. We actually have one ocean, and we share it. It's all 7.8 billion of us, whether we live in a landlocked country or we live in a coastline. We all have this shared responsibility for the sea. There were certainly moments when I look back where a lot of my friends who I graduated with were getting these hotshot jobs, and instead I'm out here picking up plastic, basically being a rubbish lady. And I shared this with my dad at one point. You know, maybe I should be actually back at home, moving on with my career. And I remember him saying to me, the point is, you're the one out there. You must be there for a reason.